Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another episode of People in Sales, Not Salespeople, a podcast where we analyze the person behind the salesperson. And today, for our guest, I would like to introduce you all to Jon Salisbury. Jon and I go way back, don't we, Jon? To
Great.
like
Love that.
2017, 2016 area.
But for me, it feels like yesterday, Matt. It's barely been a day.
He was helping me out with my first company, mentoring me with my first company. And then we just really became friends after that. Always stayed in contact and kept up with each other. Jon is man of many talents and has started many different businesses with different sales philosophies. So I'm excited to dive in and pick his brain on how he thinks about sales and some of the strategies he has in place with his team. So without further ado, as I like to do with all my guests, let's take it all the way back, Jon. My first question is, tell us about your first company and you started in the first deal you ever closed.
First company had nothing to do with. I guess. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you my first one. It's gonna be the weirdest one ever. Okay. So I went to go. I dropped out of high school first of all. So like really dumb guy here. When it came to that, both my parents were teachers. Made my dad cry. I said I'm going to go to California and be on the American Volleyball Professional Tour. He's like, "You're 6 foot tall. You're a decent jumper, but you're not like the best jumper, and you also don't have any education, so you're probably going to be a failure in life." But he said, "If you're going to do that, then I really want you to give it your all. So if you go out there and do it in California, where I went originally, get up at 4 or 5 a.m., go train, go run, go lift weights, go. No, don't be partying. Don't give it your all. Go 100% in." So that's what I did. I didn't make that, but I went to run down in Florida, and I lived with like five other volleyball guys who were like all like 6'5", all like yoked out guys. Like we worked out all the time, eating. They're all like 27. I think I was like 18, 19. And we were all calling home mom and dad for money on occasion just to get food and like drink and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping on the floor. It's like a 2-bedroom apartment, 6 guys living in it. And I kind of just saw my future, and realized that like I'm going to be 27 doing the same thing unless I change something. So when I came back, I called my former volleyball coach, and I started he's like, "I'm starting a restaurant," and I had like a little bit of cash, not much, and he's like, "Do you want to be a partner in it?" So I then created a restaurant called a Cornerstone Cafe and a Bakehouse, which is a mix between Big Sky Bread and Dewey's Pizza. So we did like sandwiches, super nice sandwiches, and like super nice, like 4 cheese focaccia bread, challah bread, which is like a Jewish egg bread, all these different kinds of breads, and then just great stuff on the sandwiches. And then we have a lot of people. So my first customer in my first business was the first guy in line on the first day, which was a killer day. And I made a killer sandwich for him. And the guy left smiling. He was like, that's the best sandwich I ever had. So first sale.
I love that. First business restaurant, B2C. You were making some delicious sandwiches and you had some happy customers. There we go.
That's right. Now the sale of that business, what I learned in that business, one, I learned what a legal contract was and how to work with one and not, how to work with other people. And then three, I also learned how to lose money. So all those things were learned in that business.
And those are key insights to glean as a business owner like yourself. So you kind of learn that people skills within that first job, right?
Yeah. I learned what I didn't want to do. So I learned like I got there at like I lived in Northern Kentucky, but the place was up in Westchester. It was called Cornerstone Cafe and Bakehouse. We
Mhm.
actually had multiple at one point, but I would drive there first thing in the morning and make bread in the morning. So you have to prep the bread and like all that kind of stuff. And then you have to prep all the kind of like the area where you put the materials like your lettuce, tomatoes, onions, avocado, all this stuff and your sauces and stuff. So you
Mhm.
do all that. Then I was working with kids my own age who were the people that were working at the restaurant. So I learned all of that, and sort of like inventory controls and like where suppliers come from and distributors and all that kind of stuff and like how a POS system worked and all that stuff. That was all like very basic stuff, but none of that like really interested me or drove my curiosity but I did work hard at it, but it
You worked
wasn't, yeah.
hard, some
I learned
money.
what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, what happens next? I know your story, but tell us what happened next, and then the next company you started.
So after that, I was 19 years old, almost 20, and I kind of like left that and decided that was not what I wanted to do. I thought, although I kept ownership in it, so I did have some equity. I paid for it. And then I just kind of was like, I don't know what to do. So I hung out with friends. I did a little school, went to some bars, socially, was very active socially, just met tons of people, was waiting tables, was bartending, type of thing, like bar backing and having a lot of fun. And but kind of lost, like kind of like still reading a lot of books,
Right.
still playing a lot of chess. That's like two big hobbies I had. And during that process, we would have these parties and they're great parties. And I would always be in a room playing chess while we were at after hours after a bar, and there'd be a line of people playing chess, and I would usually just hold court and just play chess for like 3 hours after hours.
Wow.
These people were partaking in all sorts of crazy things, but I would just sit there and play games of chess, and I'd
Uh-huh.
win a lot. And I ended up making friends with this guy named Dean Luntz, and Dean is a Jewish guy from South Africa, came over, and his dad had a business in technology that he had partnered with him with, and he had gone this technology route. And I would always beat Dean in chess, like every time, like just checkmate, 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 checkmate. I think he beat me like once out of like 1,000 games. And he's like running this technology business, and he's like, dude, you read all the time. He's like, you're kicking my ass in chess. And he's like, you're highly motivated. You go running every day. You're like all these things. You're super social. You can speak well. He's like, why are you not pursuing technology? Like, just do it. And he basically laid out this roadmap. He's like, go get this Microsoft certification. Go get this. Go get this. Go get this. Go get this.
Mhm.
And then after you do that, he's like, you're super social. So then from there, just kind of like use that, leverage that, explore. You'll make decent income, and then from there, maybe you start a business someday. And I
Yeah.
was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." So I called the next day. I like talking to my dad. I'm like, I think I met my wife too, who was like, my wife's like a superstar grounding source, and like really was like she was in school and working hard. So I
Mhm.
already saw this good example came into my life, which I really cherished. And then he gave me this other reinforcement. So then from that, it was like I called my dad and I'm like, all right, I got like 25 grand left of this little like package I had. Like that's what I have saved up, which wasn't a small amount of money. And I said, hey dad, I sucked at school. I don't know what to do with my life. I don't want to be a failure. I'm gonna sign up for this thing. It's 10 grand. You're retiring from teaching. And I want to pay for you and me to go to school together. So
Okay.
I paid for both my dad and I. It was like not 8 grand each to go to this schooling course to get certified. So my dad left retirement and went back to school with me. And we went to school together for it was like 12 weeks or 16 weeks or something like that. And and then I took the rest of my money, gave it to my wife, and said that pays for room and board for the next like year. That's fine. and and then I just studied for a year,
Yeah.
just nonstop researching, built labs. My parents are big nerds growing up and stuff, and then I got into technology big time, just building servers, computers, virtualization stacks, all sorts of programming, scripting, a lot of cybersecurity, a lot of like hacking world stuff. Total big change from the party scene, and then got a job at Best Buy later. I kind of worked for some organizations, some bigger organizations, and then decided I was like, I kind of want to do my own thing or explore this in a different way. So I got a job at Best Buy, which was kind of a great place to go because you got super cheap technology, and a
Mhm.
bunch of other smart people went there. And I met my business partner, a guy named JJ Schaefer, on the tech bench before Geek Squad existed,
Wow.
and we then were fixing people's computers that had all sorts of crazy stuff on them and giving them back to them. And then in the meantime, we had a whiteboard and we were trying to come up with, this is back in 2002. We were designing out and honestly, Best Buy, when I go through that, that taught me a lot about sales because it was transactional and they also had a flow. So, and they also had some coaching. So if you paid attention, you got a lot of microtransactions and longer transactions. Like some of the sales were 2 or 3 hours long. that you'd be educating someone through a whole process. And we kind of call it the walk. So I learned all this kind of strategy about how to like fill up somebody's basket or asking them for their problems and identifying all these kind of like working on the person, the human in front of you and relating to them and trying to find out where they were at in their journey, then educating them to how to step them forward. So, and providing value in that whole process. So then I met JJ and we sort of created this, we on the whiteboard, we created a, sort of a diagram for, JJ made the statement that whoever owns the most processors will win the game. So in
Fair.
2002, he makes a statement. He's like, whoever has the most processors will win because
Uh-huh.
they'll be able to process the most information. It just makes sense. And he was a computer engineering. I was better at networking and systems. So, at different types of systems. And he also couldn't sell fire to an Eskimo. So we came up with a concept is like most processors were only using 3 or 4% of their total usage, like over the course of a day, 96% was available. So we're like, if we could virtualize, we called it abstract. If you could abstract the processor from the operating system, then you could run multiple operating systems on the same server. And that basically was the same idea that VMware had at the same time. Now, we were in Florence, Kentucky, which is basically not Silicon Valley. So we had zero funding, zero funding. We took
No
like
fun.
10 Pentium 4s,
Brilliant.
10 Pentium 4s.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. They got like $100 million, which back then is like $5 billion, right? And then we went off, and we were the only competitor to VMware in the country. So we created that I knew of. I think there's one other group called Sophricity. So we kind of compiled this thing together and created what we believe was the first cloud in Cincinnati, which is like sort of a utility computing concept, which today would be like something like Azure, but like a really cheap, like kid version of it.
Right.
And we launched in Ludlow, and that place in Ludlow, Kentucky, is now like a tattoo parlor or something. But that's where our
Right.
little data center was, and we were
Uh,
working. Yeah,
so
yeah.
so y'all had how many servers? 4 or 5 servers, and you would what? Go
We
knock on
had
people's.
servers were black box desktops we built. They were
Okay.
P4s around that time, Pentium 4s, if you remember back that far. And we probably had 12 of them on a bread rack, and they were kind of lined up in rows.
That's
And
awesome,
then
though.
and we probably had like 12 customers on there because no one knew what the hell we were talking about and why we were doing it. And they may have saved
That's good.
$100 a month. Yeah.
Let's dive into that. So, who was your target market, and why would they want your cloud? I guess it wasn't called cloud back then, but your offshoring processor solution.
Well, I didn't know what who my target customer was very well defined. I just knew it was a business that needed technology. So back then, you had to if you wanted technology, you had to buy computers, which were expensive. No one knew how to work on them or fix them. And then two, you had to buy your own servers. There wasn't like this cloud of servers in the sky that
Right.
just existed. So
Right.
you would
Right.
buy like a large server for your facility, and that would just run for your 5 or 6 or 7 people. So we said, we'll take your server into our environment. And in fact, you won't have to buy the whole server. You'll just rent a portion of it.
Uh,
And and then we'll just bill you for what you consume, like a utility. And we called it utility computing, which later got a sexy term called cloud, like 7 years later. So we started
yeah.
doing that. And then when we'd go to customers and talk to them, tell them that you don't need the server anymore. You can put your data with us. And they would say, no, I'm not putting my data with you. Like, are you crazy? You don't know, you're young. He's like, they would say all these things like, I don't want to do any of this. I don't trust you with my data. And then right afterwards, they'd say, but you really sound like you know what you're talking about. Will you manage my current server and my computers for me? And we would say, yes, give me this much money. And we then flipped the deal, and we became that just became the natural progression. So the friction was trust, but they did trust our acumen and our intelligence and our methods, just not that infrastructure. So we still have like servers and stuff in a big cloud environment today. We use Microsoft Azure and we use Cyrus One. But we were the first data center in Cincinnati. We had multiple cabinets in there. So we've been around for a while doing that.
Yeah, that's
That
awesome.
was
And
the company. That was the company Nexogen, which is my primary
yeah,
company, Nexogen. Yeah.
yeah. So that company, that idea turned into Nexagen, which Nexagen, as far as like a branding standpoint, is IT services, cloud solutions, cybersecurity. Is that correct?
So we have, it started off as just like, what do you need? What can we
What do
do?
you need
Uh,
from standpoint? And we could do
hustle,
it.
baby. Hustle. Yes. You're struggling with this? Okay, we can do that. Yeah. What else you got problems? We can do that too. And then just figuring it out, right? So
Okay.
that was sales plus I did both sides. So there's two of us. I think my dad was our second employee. My business partner's father was our third or second employee, like other, so it was all like incestuous. But
Yeah.
then we now over time we've learned a lot. So we have a cybersecurity group, a SOC 24/7. And we do forensics and pen testing and ethical hacking and all that kind of stuff. We have a help desk where you can call in that runs 24/7. We
Mhm.
have a cloud solutions group, which delivers cloud projects for customers. We have a managed IT group, which is infrastructure management and deployment, break fix and so forth. And then we also have network services. So internet services, Wi-Fi, network switches, firewalls.
Yeah.
And then now we have, we also do consulting. And we also have now an AI practice specifically around AI consulting. And then we have about 90 people. We're buying a new facility. We're in a 20,000 square foot facility. We're buying a new 30, 40, 50,000 square foot facility while adding another 100 people, we think, in the next 5 years. Lots of good growth. And the company's doing really well. It's healthy. Market's doing really well. So it's been a good run. Um,
Yeah. That's
not a
exciting.
not a unicorn billion-dollar company, but we've chipped away and we've been very healthy the whole time.
But there are a lot of individuals who had that same, dream or skill set that you guys had and didn't make it or are not alive right now. So you guys definitely had something special, and I wanna dive into that because when it comes to the beginning portions of Nexigen and you and, your business partner just working together, you guys probably didn't really think of sales as sales. You probably thought it as, "We are good at this task, and people need help when it comes to technology. So let's go and help them and they'll pay it for us." Is that right?
Yeah, it was we had a Word document that we used for a quote. We would
Right.
estimate the quote. I mean, sales is I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's your definition of sales. You tell me. I mean, you probably
For
have
most
like thought about it a
sales
lot.
and the people setting up sales operations within businesses, there's usually structure around, hey, we got to cold call this many people or do ads. And then once we bring them in, there's a discovery call process where we talk about their needs and then we close them by doing this and this. And then this is how we serve them and upsell. Y'all were just like, yo, y'all need this? All right, cool. This is how much it's going to cost and why.
Well,
We-
there was no Google when we started. Google was just forming, right? So it was
right.
just starting, right? So there wasn't like a but you could do ad. We did ads. We bought ads on Google, like keywords, and we had all sorts of those tactics. But we've never been like over the top like ad buyers. Relationships, building trust is what our company is built on, so that people trust us. They trust us with their data, with their information, and their security perimeter. So they're critical systems. They don't have enough to pay for big IT departments or all this staff, and they trust us for that. So I sell trust today. So that's like primarily what we do. And then um, we we do not try to sell anyone. In fact, I am telling you all the reasons you may not want to work with us typically. And the salespeople that I hire, I don't hire them because they're how great they are at selling. I usually hire them because they're good people and they're doing a lot of good in the community, and people trust them. And I want them to be very active and focus on doing good. And money just happens to be a consequence of us providing value to our customers. So we don't really take approach of we want to hit this margin and these types of things. Obviously, it does exist. We have boundaries, but we're looking to do good in the community as much as possible. And then there's like a reflection happens back. And the inbound is incredible when you switch to that type of strategy. It's a giving first strategy. So we just give like crazy. I count my success based on how much the people around me are flourishing. So in my company, if I can measure the fact that they're flourishing, so I have a lot of promotions, like company's doing great. I have people that are taking more vacation than they need. Company's doing great. I have people that are showing successes with their children and their families. Company's doing great. That just means that the people are healthy, the work life's healthy. It's all these like intangible things that like when you work in the tribe that you create, which is your company,
Mhm.
the sales groups. you want to hire people that are not scared to go look over I think back to like Indian times. You have to go out and look for buffalo. So you
Mhm.
have to be sort of like not scared to go out and look over the hill to find out where the buffalo are. And then go, you're interacting with different groups and different cultures and different tribes. So you're really exploring, you're finding good, healthy people that you want your team to work with and trade with. So our salespeople are more filters. Like a lot of people want to work with us, but are you the right? Or do we line up culturally? Is it going to be a healthy relationship? Are we going to deliver value to this group? Will they actually care about what we do? If
Mhm.
it's not all those things, then probably not a good fit. So we're at that point where we're building healthy, strong relationships, and transactional sales happen, but that's not really our goal anymore. But back in the day, it was a little bit.
It was a little bit of your goal, and now it's
Yeah.
more relation building and giving as a sales strategy rather than, hunting as a sales strategy, which I like that a lot.
How many people is LeBron James selling? Um, he's doing. Why does he make hundreds of millions of dollars a year? It's because he's being seen and helping provide value to hundreds of millions of people's lives.
Mhm.
He's making that big of an impact. So he's giving his entire self every night on the court so that
Right.
all these people can see that, right? And that's why that's the value exchange. So we're trying to do as much good as we possibly can for as many communities as we can. And then we think in response to that, we'll get a value exchange. Very simple principle. Um, and then the sales aspect of it is really like, how well can we treat the people that come in? Like how white glove can I treat this person? Can I make sure if they drop their fork at the table that we'll have that picked up before it hits the ground? Yeah, we're going to try to do that. So
Mhm.
speed, accuracy, good communication, touching past the line, great communication internally. That really empowers the salesperson to really explore problems and listen for problems that the customer has, and then really take that feedback in really accurately, so that the team can work out great solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. All right. One of my questions was gonna be, what do you think about sales as a concept? I feel like you've answered that during, just your spiels around growing next gen and what you talked about right now, but do you have anything to add to that? Just sales as a concept. What do you think about that?
I think you can do it a totally different way. You can like a lot of my industry in cybersecurity, it's a fear tactic. They're playing off emotions. So I would say there's another way we could go. And I've always felt like long term in your career, if you use emotional tactics or things that are like subversive or sort of like quick win, not long term kind of approach, you can actually get these like peaks where you'll see these like peaks, and actually you'll get awarded awards, and you'll be encouraged to continue
Faster,
this activity
harder,
sometimes, right?
all this stuff. Yeah.
So all these things will happen that are good, but inside you actually won't feel that great about it. There'll be like, you'll know you're kind of, if you don't feel good about it, that friction that exists will keep growing. So I always feel like if you feel healthy, like really healthy internally about how you're approaching sales, and you feel like you're at peace with that, like that's really, you're not subverting or all these things. Like you're not having to, just being honest, you don't have to go out home and drink a six pack to get to sleep at night. Um, then there's probably a reason for that. If you're all day long, you're spinning yarn or spinning some sort of a way that's not really aligning with your values and so forth. So I would say that you can. I've seen really successful sales guys do this. In fact, myself, I've had some times where I've gone up and down, and I would say the more that I'm kind of like doing it for the right reasons, I feel like long term you're just going to be healthier and stronger, and those relationships I'm talking about, like when you're a sales guy, say you're working at one company, and you develop 500 relationships, and they're really strong and they're really good for that company. If you change companies, those relationships come with you.
Right.
so, so for me, as an like I own a company, these people work with me. That guy, I realize that, like those invisible strings he has, those aren't mine. Those are his. I can try to enforce whatever contracts I have. So I treat my people really freaking good because I realize they have a ton of power in
Netflix.
their hands. But I also am encouraging them to live extremely like healthy lives and not to do things that are out of bounds or where they feel like they're having ethical problems with or these things. Because there's so many people out there that like like in cybersecurity, you can scare someone where they actually have fear, and then you can use fear as the driving force. And I've actually been to classes where they're teaching you how to do this from a sales standpoint at scale.
Yeah.
And they're saying you scare them, scare them, scare them. Oh, you're not scaring them. You're like you're scaring them, and then you're just driving the potential profits up because they're fear responding in their spend. They're doing it out of complete scare. We actually take the approach we call it confidence as a service. So we're educating and trying to make them make their decisions informed with confidence, and that's our objective. So it's a complete counter to kind of how our industry works. But I feel like it's an anti-sale. I really do. But maybe it's really how people really just sell.
Uh-huh. And there's all different types of sales strategies and tactics and all of that stuff. Like sales in general, that word sometimes just has a stigma of, oh, you're trying to cheat this person or you're trying to use backhanded or techniques to get them to give you money. But in general, sales is having conversations with a customer, right? And the way you guys go about it is more value add, is more educational. The way some other people go about it is scare tactics and is telling them all the bad things that'll happen if they don't work for the company, you know?
That's correct. That's correct. It's hard to get everybody saying the same thing all the time. I'm probably not the best at it, but we try to. I also hate micromanaging. So I
Okay.
hate because when I was micromanaged growing up in different areas, I couldn't stand it. So I was like, give me some room to breathe. Let me explore. Let me test the waters here. So
Mhm.
our strategies at Nexogen for our salespeople aren't completely 100% the same. It's actually frustrating for some people that come on. They're like, why isn't this exactly the same? And I'm like, I actually want people, I want you to have some room. And
Yep.
they're like, why? They're so not used to having the ability to have some room. It's awkward for them. And I'm like, no, no, no. You can make some decisions here. Like, what's this exact? What should I do here? I'm like, use your brain is what you should do.
I mean,
Like,
we're taught in all organizations, most, I'd say 80, 90% of organizations teach that there's a playbook that's proven that you have to follow. And this is how you do the sale for our company. And you're really sort of breaking the boundary there and saying diversity in sales mindset, sales strategy mindset uh, is going to be more fruitful for us than just some playbook people have to follow.
we have a playbook and we teach it, but it's not forced. Like you must say this at this time and capture this note. It's really a feel like everybody, like, why would you tell a musician who's really good at guitar, like to play like Eric Clapton when he plays like somebody else from like Led Zeppelin? It's like let the person express themselves, and then that salesperson's empowered and they're able to find their rhythm. And that's maybe they're not going to hit the ground running. Maybe that takes 6 months, not 2 months. Maybe it takes 3 months. Yeah, I feel like patience is power,
Mhm.
patience and perseverance. So you sort of I never expect it to happen. I always expect it to happen 3 or 4 times longer than I wanted it to. And I'm okay with that. So
Everything.
so but I definitely push for it to happen when I want to. But I'm
Getting
always like, it's gonna take longer.
and make
It's just
sure
gonna
that
take
you
longer.
got 100% of their brain that is trying to figure out this equation for them. How is sales going to work for them? Because also, if you do it this way, then you get a diversity of, um, like I said, strategies before, but I want to use a different word. You can say one person is going after this type of target persona in this context, and then another person thinks, "Hey, actually, I think going to conferences or, cold calling or using my network is the best way to go about sales for Nexogen." So you kind of get this web of ideas.
That's right. So we have kind of like distribution is so I would say sales falls under distribution. So
Okay.
I look at businesses very I don't know. I don't like to compartmentalize, but I will. Okay. So you
Sure.
have problem formation.
Okay.
So that's where you figure out the problem that you're trying to solve. So do I know what the problem actually is? Most people hear a problem and they immediately jump to solution. They're like, okay, problem, let's solution. And then immediately once they look at solution, they start develop. And it's like, hold on. Do you really understand what that problem was? Do you feel like your little pea brain? Like I'm just being honest. Like we're all like smart here or whatever, but like, do you feel like you really just figured it out like so quickly? Um, I feel like people try to understand the problem about 1/10 as long as they actually need to.
Mm.
And that takes it. You analyze problem, you get away from it, you analyze it in different direction, you analyze it, and there's different. So let me back that up. Before that, you have two types of decisions you're making. One is, and I'll use it. This is Jeff Bezos brings this up. It's you have doors that you can walk into and you can walk out of quickly. Those types of things don't spend any time. You find the problem, find a solution, develop, go. Those are transactions that you don't have to worry about. There are other doors which are more complicated that you can't get back out of. You go in, you're stuck. On those, you spend 10 times more on the problem side, and then you spend 10 times more on the solution side, and then you have strong axiomatic base. So I'm going into like philosophical, logical principles, like you have actual axioms that you're building on. And then you create the base structure for your solution. And then you do development, which is where you're building your scaffolding. I'll call it technical debt. You can use software, processes, people, AI, whatever the heck you want. So those are all those things that build the scaffolding. The scaffolding is only as strong as the axioms that it sits on. And most axioms can be have problems as well. So your philosophy needs to be right before you actually get into the technical detail. So then from there, once you've built that, then you're just creating a product sheet. You're hitting your highlights and you're basically creating a filtration process. You're doing distribution, which is like, how many people can I get this in front of? How can I get those people educated into the way we do it, which is our trick? And
Mhm.
then from there, how do I then transact them forward? And then after that, how do I get the actual supply chain to activate and deploy? And then how do I manage that ongoing, that process ongoing? And then how do I scale? So to me, there's there's research, then there's development, and then
Mhm.
there's management. But most people, most companies, when they create their problem statement, maybe like this much of their company, they could be an ocean size, and like one speck of grand is actually focusing on the problem. The rest of their company is distributing the solution for that problem across the globe. Even Google, like how many people are actually working on their search problem?
Right.
Maybe like there was
It's kind of
probably a couple.
like,
Most of it was like, how do we get this out to everyone and like
our
manage the relationships, contracts, and like
marketing and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, mostly even the technical debt, even the code we have. How do we keep that refreshed and updated? Language updates. It's just maintenance, right? So like
Mhm.
with
Cybersecurity.
AI, that's right. But AI, you're changing this whole dichotomy now. So there's potentially a lot of new next generation types of transactions and sales.
Yeah.
Sales, in my mind, is again providing value, getting a return for said value, and then scaling that capability set. So you're just increasing the size of your network. And that's distribution. So distribution to me is once you figure out how to sell something, how do I do it with a distributed mindset?
I like it. I like it. And I really like what you said at the beginning of most people only spend 10% of their time analyzing and being and sitting in the problem.
They
And
don't want to.
that's
They want to move. They want to be action. I need
right.
action. We need move
Right.
fast, break things. It's like
You need to understand the problem and build the structures and really see how your solution can complement the true problem effectively. In order to do that, you got to spend 10 times longer sitting in the problem, asking questions and figuring out how to message and figure out how people talk and figuring out the truth behind the issues people are facing. So I like that.
yeah. Remember now we're running the AI and saying, hey, what are 20,000 solutions for this? And it's just coming in with AI, right? So you're like, you actually need to know how the problem works. Like, great if AI helps you, that's great. If you can do that faster with it, compress that time frame, great. But you actually have to know it. And
Mhm.
when you understand the problem, I talked to this guy. He breaks it into two parts. One is the philosophy. It's like general conversation, like how
Mhm.
does this problem work? Like you're talking about. The second part is actually applying like potentially a technical aspect to the problem, mathematics, geometry, formalization, into some sort of like method or process that's structural. You could actually draw it out on a diagram on a board or something like that. That's where you're getting into like and then you have a further technical where it's like, okay, this is applied into an actual like software set where the information is like formalized. Then from there, it's kind of like, okay, how do I educate the people um, to enable this further? But now with agents, you're sort of like, do I need to educate my person or the agent, or do I educate the agent to help my person? Or it's like it's another like abstracted layer in business, which for me, I love chess. I love how things work together. So for me, it's freaking amazing. I'm like, I love thinking about all the new ways you can do things.
Yeah. One thing you brought up and I want to talk about is buzzwords. You brought up AI, and I want to ask you, when it comes to different trends and different words that people like to latch onto and change their whole marketing, your website around, how do you view that? How do you guys deal with that? And how do you potentially use that to kind of reinforce sales strategy or helping people understand the true problem within, the new buzzword of the day.
Yeah, I like to simplify. Um, uh, Artificial intelligence. I mean, I'm just going to break it down here. Like, what is intelligence? Like, what is that? I'm asking you. I mean, you're a rocket scientist from UC
Yeah.
who's got like an incredible brain on him. Like, what does intelligence mean to you? What is it?
What is intelligence? If somebody is intelligent, they are capable of, um, I would say, dissecting and sifting through information. And I want to say in an intelligent way, but I can't use the word in the definition. But yeah, gosh, what is an intelligence? What's the definition? I need to look it up.
Ex- Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So we throw around terms all the time. Humans do.
Uh huh.
We are crazy individuals and we're easily talked into things. That's why you can be a great sales guy without saying things that actually you really have spent a lot of time on. So intelligence has a lot of different definitions to a lot of different people, and it's not necessarily well. And if you get down to base, so there's like this high level thing is like the person's smart. Okay, well they're smart. Okay, well they read a lot of stuff. Okay, that's great. Right. What does that mean? Okay. Well, they've read a lot of stuff about a lot of different areas. Okay. What does read a lot of stuff means? Well, we'll say that's knowledge. Well, what's knowledge? Knowledge is symbols that we've put down on paper or in digital format, which we then interpret as like language that we work with, right? And it's formalized in a way that we then potentially have an internal dialogue that we work on. And that dialogue we have on allows us to think through problems. We call that thinking. So an intelligent person knows how to think well. Is sort of like when I think is like sort of like, okay, that's a good person. They've had a lot of experiences. They've read a lot about a bunch of different areas, and then they can take that experience and apply it towards unique problem sets in a way where they're kind of combining this information. I call it combinatory learning. So you go out and explore, you learn as much as you can about a bunch of different areas. You combine that knowledge, you kind of compress it. You're combining, and then you're using it towards a direction with energy.
Mhm.
So for me, that an intelligent person is doing that in a lot of different directions. And then you could get into like information theory where you're talking about like how the world's like computation and all this stuff. But for me, the artificial version of that is really not really much really artificial. I would say um, intelligence is more like it's. I mean, I get pretty scientific or
Almost.
philosophical here.
Yeah.
Wait, all right. So you have like information which is hitting me right now. Like I'm sitting with the sun, right? So the sun is shooting photons at me. As it does so, that we call that an entropy stream. So you have a stabilized entropy stream that's like highly condensed and directional coming off the sun. It's hitting the earth and it kind of disperses. So
Mhm.
as it disperses, as it comes towards you, you're getting hit with an information stream. So right now, my body is radiating. I can actually feel it. And that's hitting my skin. It's going to go through to my cellular structure. My cells each have some intelligence, although they're not thinking, but they actually can move around and move wherever. That then hits your limbic system with sorts of like this weird electrochemical system, which then drives into your brain and then goes into like what we intelligence of some sort.
Okay.
So in a way, you're talking about a coherent glob of stuff, matter or water or photons or electrons or whatever, and you're sort of downstepping it through things into more coherence. So you have water, which is a glob of stuff that sticks together. You can't really hold it in your hand. That then is energy, which is sort of information. It then falls on a turbine. It turns the turbine. The turbine is more controlled version of information that drives electricity, which is running through like DC or AC, which goes over another medium, copper. It's not it's still chaotic, but it's less chaotic. It then gets to your computer.
Mhm.
Computer then turns it into another step of formalization where it's less chaotic, and we're now formalizing it all the way to where it gets into pulses of on and offs, right? That gets stored in a hard drive in different patterns, which then come back to you as right now on the screen. It's all happening real time, right? When we do all of that more and more and more, and we compress it on top of each other, eventually we speak to the computer and it speaks back to us.
Hmm.
So that's how AI works in my mind. So it's transforming, which is a transformer, different sets of information into other forms of information through massive compression and abstraction. And then from there, you run inferent, that's a vector database. And then from that, you run on top of it inference or active inference, which is a prediction algorithm.
Right.
And then those two things work together and give you what they call artificial intelligence, which works similarly to how our brains work, right? It's
Yeah.
similar.
Call that.
But
Yeah.
it's like our brains are like a bird which can fly around a little flower, and we
Right.
have all this articulation, and we can go above the flower and around it. We cannot disturb the flower while we're pollinating it or whatever. We've got this all this crazy acuity, right? Now,
Right.
a plane can take 150 people over to Europe, but you put it by a flower, it'll destroy the flower. It's very directional. It's big. It only does one way. You almost call it not flying. It's a glider that has engines that runs it.
Right. Yeah.
We are the bird. This thing's like an airplane when it comes to like stop production. So but it needs a pilot. It needs to make sure its people are safe, all that kind of crap, right? So we built
Can't
out
do
a
anything
practice around that side.
extremely intricate. Intricate. It can't do anything extremely intricate, but it can sort of model the flight pattern or um the philosophy of flight in a sense. So, I mean, it
So,
seems like when it comes to like the buzzwords of IT and that we've seen across the years, what you do is you just break it down to the technical. You're like, hey, AI, you need to understand what it is. Here's artificial intelligence from a definition standpoint. And I'm sure throughout the years of IT, there's been other buzzwords like cloud computing that you had to then educate people on. All right, you're saying cloud, but this is what cloud actually is.
that's
All right,
correct.
everybody's saying cloud, 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 but let me tell you what you're actually talking about, right?
That's correct. That's correct. So it's a million. I've done it like 50 times. This is the latest one. You've done it too. Like it's AI, deep learning, you have machine learning. AI
Right.
is kind of slang for machine learning. You're basically just like trying. It's the weird part is though it's been proven like AI can't reason. It actually doesn't know how to learn. It's like it's all these like funny things you actually figure out. This doesn't work like a human does once you get into the science of it.
And
But ultimately, you're taking all of the knowledge that your humans have used on computers and spread all over the place, and you're compressing it, and you're making it really compact together. And then from there, you can interface in one place with all of it, and you can speak to it like you would a human. And from there, then the information just kind of wakes up and it talks back to you. So from my standpoint, that's super powerful. Like Google did that to the whole internet originally. Like the whole internet was dispersed. You had to go to different web pages. You barely had hyperlinks. You had hardly any graphics. I mean, you had 56K modems, which were back in the day. I mean, and then when Google came, it connected everyone to all of this information very easily. So the intelligence explosion happened then because that's where you had the search engine that could search across it. Now AI does that 1,000 times better in a lot of instances, and it does it in more creative ways and so forth. So the intelligence explosion just grows incredibly. So it's that level of impact
yeah.
across the entire ecosystem. So from a salesperson's perspective, gosh, your eyes should be big because there is so much opportunity. We're at the beginning, the very beginning of a long race. And
Mhm.
you better get healthy. Go out and get your runs in, get your push-ups in, get ready for some long days because it's really time to push, man. It is like if you're gonna roll, like go and read now. Like you can go to AI and learn so much so fast,
Mhm.
and you can learn new things. You got to dive in though.
Right. Dive in, study your prospects. You can learn a whole bunch of stuff for Perplexity AI, ChatGPT, and then you can also simplify your sales process and write emails and sales scripts and all that stuff with AI.
Do,
Super,
do you see Perplexity was number one on the App Store? Holy smokes,
are you serious? I believe it. I've
number
been using
one.
it, and I love how they're diving into the discovery or the news type of research with ChatGPT. I love that because
We
we can get different articles, questions, and sort of follow ups and all that stuff. I like it. I
Dude,
like it.
they're exploding. They're going to be the next Google. Like they're going to be like Google for sure. I think
Been watching
there's a lot of cool.
I've been
And
so one of
graphics
my
pretty strong.
ideas way back when was to have a touchless experience with the computer. So your mouse is actually moving for you and your computer is typing for you and all that stuff. And they just
Yeah,
released that in Anthropic. I don't know if you saw, but they have like a
I did.
computer,
Yeah, dude. Well, but did you ever use macros?
like in Excel. Yeah.
no, on your computer. So you could do, I used to, so the reason I did this is my brother's a big video gamer. My brother's like hyper intelligent, super smart.
Yeah.
Um, and he used to play video games and he's super OCD. Like if he had 1,000 Cheerios across his desk, he would know where every single one of them was. If you came in and moved one, like just rotated it, he'd be like, "Why'd you touch my Cheerio?" Like that's my brother, right? Now,
Okay.
when he played video games, he was like super like detailed into like has mouth movement and all this other stuff, right?
Mhm.
I created a macro and I put it on his computer. Now, what a macro does is you can put it on a computer and you could pre-record movements,
Mhm.
right? And you can do all sorts of weird stuff. You could get it to move up to the top right, open up a new tab, but you had to
Right.
know exactly coordinates wise where it was going.
The
So
pixels
I
and all.
put a macro on my brother's computer where it would move the mouse this much every like 6 hours. Like it would just do this. That was it. That was it. He would freak
Well,
out, dude. Like something's broken. He'd get a new mouse in there, just a little
man,
bit. He'd be like, what just happened there?" And he'd be like, so that's the kind of thing.
sandwich.
But
Yeah. I mean, you could do it with macros, but now with AI being able to just tell it like, "Hey, go to Google," or something like that, and it
but
can just
what's different about those two things? Like you're using a heuristic based on coordinates, and now you're compressing all the data into a vector database, which you could almost consider like a multi-dimensional space. And then from there, you're basically using heuristic. So you're analyzing that data to find the object that looks like this coordinate on the screen. And then from there, you're giving it the coordinate to go to. So in a way, it is a macro.
well,
It's just
I
you
don't yeah,
interfacing.
programming standpoint, at the end of the day, it's a macro, but from a usability standpoint, I don't have to know how to program, right, to access this really interesting way to interact with my computer. And there's a
That
lot
is
of
true.
probably, like, computer vision that goes on with, having the AI understand how to navigate user interfaces, so that way you don't have to know the
Yes.
pixels, you just have to know,
Yes.
hey, symbol of a refresh button or a symbol of an add tab button,
Y-
right? So
Yeah, but if you change, so the trouble with AI is though directionally,
right.
it's very directional. So its adaptation is not very good. So if I change the button criteria quite a bit or the text font and so forth and these kind of things, the plane that was moving this way, it can't
Right.
generalize over to that other thing. So
Yeah.
I wonder if if we start using that, like how limited our expression will be. Are we actually losing creativity because we got to standardize so much for this thing to interact with, right? There's always a give and take with new things, and I'm looking for those edge cases. Like I want to push the boundaries. Can we make it super expressive and be able to and show that creativity and have it adapt to that as well?
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, if they make it trainable, that would be interesting. So I'd say I
Yeah.
have the AI that's in my computer that can control my mouse and keyboard. Okay, let me teach it how to hit the plus button, go to Google or Netflix, type in my favorite show. So that way, whenever I say, "Hey, go to my favorite show," it just does that task. And I'm
So this is the other weird thing that was out before. So there is an open source version of that right there. Like Auto GPT hat was out. It did some cool things, and there are some other programs that kind of created this sort of like macro experience. That's what I call it because that's where we used to use.
Mhm.
And you even had some fuzzy logic and macros. But Anthropic gets to claim like when they release it, it's like they were first. I'm like, nah, they were
No,
first. But
first because I
and then when
did.
they release though, it's not really ready for game day.
It's
So
not
so
a
it
lot of
breaks,
fun.
it stalls. Yeah, it's a lot of bucks. But we're seeing $1 billion new companies or billions of dollars releasing code that literally doesn't work. And then we're celebrating like go do that, man. And it's like it seems to be this positivity mindset that's just pushing innovation.
Mhm.
I don't know how healthy. I think there's some healthy, like, challenges that are going on with some of this, but as a sales guy, you're like, if I'm allowed to sell that, then
Like,
then,
Lord,
like,
no, because you're kinda selling the future.
ching
Well,
ching.
that's an interesting concept. Is that a good thing or a bad thing that we are releasing code before it's polished and finished? Because you always have the saying of, "Hey, if you're happy with your product when you release it, you released it too late. You gotta develop and sell at the same time," sort of concepts, but then you have the polished apples of the world who whenever they release something big like Apple Vision or Apple Watch, that thing is polished. Like there's no bugs, there's nothing in there, right? It's ready to go. So
Because you can use AI for simulation testing. So you can test out like robustness testing, you can test out all the problems. Like you can just simulate all of them, right? And make it very polished.
that's one thing. I don't think you could always get rid of every single problem.
Not everyone, but
14
but
on
you
the
it's like a
iPhone,
filter.
always something. There's always something wrong with, they always got to do a 1.1, 1.2, where even their developers miss stuff. So,
Can I talk about how I first met you and then the biggest sale of your life back in the day?
all right, go ahead.
Well, that was the big sale that we actually had. So I met Matt. So when I first met Matt, like I was like, who in the heck is this smart kid? Like rocket scientist working on LIDAR, which is
Also,
basically synthetic point cloud. It's like point clouds. It's a whole new technology. No one understands this stuff. It's like very new edge, like very new. And Matt's like, yeah, I'm building that. That's what I specialize in. I'm going to build point clouds. I'm going to have them like omnidirectional. And he went into our basement at my office and had this LiDAR thing where he was creating point clouds and interfacing with some of my customers. Really cool stuff. Um, and the technology was kind of coming on. So I was like, man, this is really cool. And he was so far ahead of everyone, but really you weren't sure, you were kind of building and still working out the kinks. And
mhm,
then I got to talk to this guy. He's like, I can get you in touch with UPS. UPS is the biggest, like this is before Amazon was as big. I mean, Amazon was massive, but UPS was still delivering most of their packages.
still is, yeah.
So UPS is massive, and this guy's like, "I can get you with the guy who makes purchases for UPS on the technology side for trucks, and he's looking for a lidar system." I was like, "You can do what?" And the guy's like, "I can get you a meeting with that guy." And I was like, "We can talk to the UPS supplier or buyer for their solutions who's looking for a lidar solution." And
Mhm.
you were like, "Okay." You weren't even that worried about it. You were kinda like, "Yeah, that's cool.
Like,
Just looks like
let's
whatever." Like, I didn't see any pressure, like, entering your body. You were like, "Yeah, what I'll freaking sell 'em that." I was like, "Okay." So we get on the call and the sale did not go the way we thought, I don't think.
I mean, we didn't really understand what he was looking for, the problem that he had and all that stuff. Now me would understand how to have a conversation like that. Then me was just thinking about tech. I'm like, "All right, you need LiDAR? I have LiDAR."
Well, he was like, "I want an RS-232 cable," so very specific cabling structure. "I
Uh-huh.
want you to not send anything but one command, so just one pulse of electricity or like 3 or 4 across the cable to just tell me that a sweep has been done with the lidar. I want the lidar to run then one time, come back, and then send a response that it ran and storage, and I need that done in this amount of data size." So all these like very, very, very specific criteria.
Mm.
And then after he said that, which made it the more simple people make things, they don't realize it actually makes it harder.
Yeah.
So he closed all the space and was like, "This is exactly what I need." And then he said, "And I need it for my entire fleet." And then he said, "And I need to buy it from you for this price." So he
Yeah.
told us the price they needed it for. He told us he needed it for an entire fleet. And he told us he needed exactly what he needed, the exact problem. And when we got off that call, you were like, "I don't think we can make it at this point because it was where do
And
we
it's
buy it from?"
he wanted LiDAR to analyze his trucks to see if there were still boxes in them, because
That's
they're
correct.
having a problem that was like, hey, they would pull a truck up to, a space where they would load more boxes in, and there would already be boxes there. So they
Yeah.
knew spatial insight on if there was boxes in the truck or not, that would help. Boxes are obviously I mean, the trucks are obviously dark, so LiDAR, which emits light and distance and all that stuff, and point clouds would obviously help with that. And he just was like, "We need this and that and that." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's test it out, guys." So we did a full test down outside in the basement. I remember us talking about vibration concerns and all this stuff. It
You
was
even had you had measured out like the outside how far the boxes were and all this stuff. But the problem we came up with is we couldn't find a supplier that we could get the actual equipment for at that price. But
and it was a concern too.
that's right. But that was a multi-$100 million deal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about big sale. That was big. P&G was big. I still go back to Cohen and that. That was really the first deal. That's what I thought you were talking about. That
That big monster machine they had you working on.
oh, get this right
You were
now.
trying to make a point cloud interact in multiple point clouds and bring them together. I remember you were like, I don't know if I can do this. It became a very technically challenging software problem.
Mhm. But hey, we sort of figured it out at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
all right, well, to wrap this up, I got a question. When it comes to the mindset of a business person, someone who wants to build a business, grow a business, distribute product, what does their mindset have to be successful, in your opinion?
There's something called when you say mindset. So even just saying mindset, I'm the type of guy to like really carefully listen to your words. What does mindset mean? What does that actually mean? And that's a challenging question for someone in my mind. You can just say a word, but when you think about like your personal experience of what a mindset is, in mind, it's sort of this. So you need to be moving forward and you
Mhm.
need to do it in a sort of uplifting manner. Um, that means if you run into problems or hurdles, you don't do this. You just keep going. So
Agree.
it's you wake up in the morning, you look yourself in the eye, and you say, "Let's go."
Mhm.
And there's no. It's almost you still have emotion. You're gonna have highs and so forth. You need to monitor that. You don't want to get too excited.
Mhm.
You don't want to get too low and so forth, but you're looking for a consistent positive uplift, and you want to put that out like manifestation. I'm putting out positive. If you're complaining all day long, you're not gonna kill it.
Mhm.
If you're saying like if you're seeing good, like it's very easy to see problems in everything. I don't have a problem seeing problems in things. Now, if I vocalize that and turn that into this big narrative, I'm not focusing on solutions. I'm focusing on all these like little personal micro problems I have. So long-term vision and relationships and upward positivity for you and those around you is going to uplift. And if you're working with people and you're focused more on what they're saying than what you're talking to yourself about, your internal dialogue,
Mhm.
that's pretty important. So being a very good listener and then
Mhm.
having a consistent positive outcome. Who doesn't want to be around that person?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to be talking to someone who has good things to say, who has potential positive outcomes on the horizon, who's solving problems for me, who I'm giving problems to, and they're coming back to me with solutions. I mean, it's a dopamine reinforcement. You want to call that person. You want that person to call you. Now, there's other ways that people do it where like I'm gonna dive into golf or some of these other sort of like habits. I'm gonna figure out what that person's favorite cookie is. I'm gonna bring it over to them every week. All these kind of things. I think those are all good
Right.
tactics. At the end of the day, if you're complaining the whole time while you give them a cookie, they probably don't want to be around you much. Maybe they buy from you because they have to, but you want to
Yeah.
be uplifting and moving it forward. And then you're going to have upward trajectory in your organization because people that have positive mindsets become magnets for other people.
Mhm.
So you'll see them if you're in an event or something like that. You'll see these people that are. Why are there 20 people around that person? Well, he's saying like things that other people want to hear. What do they want to hear? Good things that are potentially going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So what I'm hearing, mindsets, you got unwavering. You gotta have unwavering mindset, self-controlled, consistency, motivational, self-reflective, outspoken, positive mindset. I like that.
That all starts, but to know where it is, it all starts with the question of who am I?
Mm.
And knowing who you are, because we have multiple companies, so we've got 7 active companies. We've had 15 companies in total. We've had 4 or 5 failures. We've had 2 exits. We have 7 active, and there's different leaders in different these organizations. I'm a part of them. We're not a PE group or a VEC group. These are all friends that like you, somebody like you, like meet, we hang out, like we do work together. We start a business together. Um, that each guy at each group or gal at each group has a different way that they sell. And I've never tried to tell them you're doing it wrong every time. Because if they're having success, you're like, keep doing that.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
crushing. We have different ways. One of the guys at the payroll company and payroll software company we work with, I call him the Big Easy. He walks into rooms and people just like gravitate towards him, and he just closes deals in his sleep. He doesn't even try. I got a girl who's a CEO of one of our companies. She's very analytical. She wants to give you every piece of information possible, blow you away with her understanding and all this stuff. She successful. Keep doing that. I got another girl who goes out and like just is giving away her time to just these amazing efforts, and people just like surround themselves around her, and she closes deals without trying. Great, do it. Um, so that's where I feel like you could be like, I did it this way. I learned really well this way. Like those things I told you, those might not work for you. So the way that's where when you say, "Who am I?"
Yeah.
Then have confidence in that, and then find that inner. I call it the inner lion, man. That inner lion, and then
Inner li
let that inner lion roar.
Yeah.
Like come out, and then if you're crushing numbers, your boss is not going to say keep reading the script. They're going to
Right.
say, "What the hell are you doing? Help me redefine my script."
Right. I like that. Figure out who you are and figure out what sales strategy, tactic, methodology works for you and go out there and crush it. Be unwavering. So, all right. Well, I
All right.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks for hopping on, John. Where can people find you and find your content and get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Jon Salisbury. I have
Yes.
a horse face chess piece as my picture, so it's not this face you see here. I have a horse face here, but a real one. It's like a chess piece. Then nexogen.com, we have enterprise technology association.com, which is, or I'm sorry, joineta.org, which is the association. And we have pay options, which is our payroll company. Then we have Rove IQ, which is our smart city company. And I got 3 or 4 stealth ones, but there's a bunch.
That's awesome. All right, John.
All right.
Thanks so much for hopping on. Good insights. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me on, brother. You the man.
Yep. Have a good one. Peace.